Hey everybody, welcome to our second edition of Composers in Quarantine Drinking Cocktails. I'm here today with Miho Hazama.
Hi.
Hi Miho.
Hi.
For anybody who doesn't know Miho, she's a Grammy-nominated composer and arranger, the leader of the New York City-based group M Unit, which I can only presume is standing for Miho Unit.
You're right.
Right? Okay.
You're
Very
correct.
good. Very good. You've just become the chief conductor of the Danish radio big band. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Maybe a few months behind. Those congrats are a few months behind, but
No, it's totally fine. It's so nice of you. Thanks.
of course. And then you conducted for the Metropole Orchestra. You're one of the featured artists on the Metropole Orchestra's big band CD of the music of Thelonious Monk at the Bin House. So, Miho Hazama, it is an absolute honor to have you here, featured for the second episode of Composers in Quarantine, Drinking Cocktails. And my first question for you is, what are you drinking today?
Okay, so this is what I could come up. The only thing that I could come up to this time. This is whiskey and a soda with lime, with like a bowl ice. I'm a whiskey lover, so but this is quite early still now, so I couldn't do with the just the straight, so
well, cheers to that. I'm also drinking whiskey.
I know, whiskey mate, that's
whiskey
amazing.
Mates. Whiskey mates. We might not be able to do this interview in person, but at least we can drink a very similar liquid during this conversation. Great. So cheers, and
cheers.
Thanks again for joining us, Miho.
Thanks for having me.
Given that you've been all around the world presenting your music, conducting, arranging, orchestrating, a large amount of artists' music, you have such a unique perspective, I think, on the music world right now, because not only are you writing for your own projects, but you're arranging, you're orchestrating, you're conducting, you're collaborating with just an insane amount of people right now. So how did you kind of get started in writing, and what brought you to where you are today?
Okay, yeah, sure. I grew up with just listening to so many kinds of music because my parents are absolute music lovers. And I started studying electric organ, piano, and composition. And I ended up going to classical music college back in Japan. I'm originally from Japan, Tokyo. And my major was a classical composition, and my minor was film composition. But at the same time, as an after school activity, there was a big band in a college big band, and then that's where I started playing jazz. I mean, I had listened to jazz music a lot before, but that was my first time playing jazz music by myself because the piano was the only instrument that I could play. And then that's how I got really interested in modern jazz composers such as Mariah Schneider, Jim McNeely, Vince Mendoza, Gil Goldstein. So I decided to take an audition of schools that they teach. And then that brought me to Manhattan School of Music, where Jim McNeely teaches. And I studied a jazz composition for 2 years for my master's degree. And then that was my first time switching my major from classical music to jazz major. So after the graduation, around the graduation time from Manhattan School of Music, I decided to have a large ensemble by myself because those times that I spent in MSM was a great opportunity for me to find my identity, to think about my identity, what I could do for my life as a career, as a person from Japan, studying classical music, now studying jazz music, female, Japanese, Asian, so many weird things around myself, and that's just a natural background for me. So I decided to go with my instinct sense that a big piano is not my strength as a writer. I always think of strings in my head every time I try to write music. So I decided to have this 13-piece chamber orchestra by myself for my graduation recital at MSM. And then I liked that instrumentation. So I decided to go ahead and record with them. And then that was the debut album of M Unit, Journey. So since then, it's been almost 10 years. And well, 10 years ago, I came to New York City. And after 2 years that I stayed in New York City mostly and tried to survive as a band leader, composer and arranger. And then occasionally and eventually I started getting jobs as a conductor. So that's what I do now.
Wow, so many amazing things that we could talk about based off of what you just said. You know, one thing that stood out to me is that you brought up the fact that you are I think you are the first person in your family to move to America. So the rest of your
Correct.
family lives in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So personally, that must have been, at least initially, challenging.
Well, yeah, that's true. Well, 10 years ago, first of all, I could not speak English well.
Wow, your English is perfect.
I could not even order water at the restaurant.
Wow.
Because water was water to me. And water doesn't really make sense to American English. Water. So for the first 3 months of my life in New York City, at any restaurants, the only drinks that I could order was not water, but beer.
Well, perfect. We're on the right podcast,
exactly.
right?
Exactly. So, you know, that's how I became quite an alcoholic. Well, I mean, I'm not really an alcoholic, but I really like beer. And that was no problem for me. But that's how, you know, my life in New York City started. So that was, well, I did not really think about homesick or, you know, cultural, like a shock or something like that, because I was already in Tokyo for a long time, which is also a huge city. So New York, either like, you know, Tokyo or New York City, both are very busy, big city. So I did not think about that difference, but it was just so funny that everything was so different. I mean, in terms of my life, that I can't really speak well, but everyone is, you know, trying to understand it, which was so grateful. I mean, I was so grateful that everyone was so nice at school, tried to understand what I meant. And music is also a universal language that I did not really have to, you know, explain in words. I could go with my scores and the charts to explain what I want to tell them. So that also helped me a lot too. But yeah, the first couple of months was really, really funny. That I think a lot of classmates can still recall how funny I was at the time.
Awesome. So Miho, you are a pianist. Your first instrument was piano, but you're writing for different ensembles. To me, at least, it's not piano music blown up.
Right.
You know, obviously, you know that is a certain method. But I think that's one of the things that Jim McNeely teaches. One of the first things he teaches, he says, if you write piano music and then you blow it up, it's not going to make sense.
Sure.
So can you talk to us a little bit about your entry into composition, like your transition from playing piano to writing? Because I think that for many composers, there is that moment where you know, the way you said it, you recognize your strengths. You know, the way that I would say it is, you know, something's like awoken and you just realize that, you know, I am meant to be a writer. I'm meant to be an arranger and an orchestrator, a conductor. So
Okay, sure. Yeah, well, that's actually a great question. And I would actually say quite opposite thing from now on. Because my main background is not being a pianist, but I started learning electric organ, which is like a synthesizer with a lot of bass sound. So I started playing, you know, right hand as a melody, left hand with a harmony, left leg as a bass, right leg with a controlling program. So it's like a, pipe organ or organ with synthesizer programming.
Wow, so you were already writing for multiple voices. You weren't just limited, quote unquote, to your two hands.
So not only, for writing for this instrument, but also I started playing that instrument to copy classical symphonic music. So since I was 8 or 9 years old, I started copying the Tchaikovsky scores by Tchaikovsky, Rachmaninoff, Prokofiev, Ravel, or Respighi, all my favorite composers from France or Russia or Italy in the early 20th centuries, to learn from the hand score to convert to the my electric organ score. And then I got to program those tone colors as well. If that's the strings plus winds, then I had to program as that. And I had to switch my program with my right leg so that I can switch my rhythm and the tone color, all of that. So that's how I basically learned all of the sound in my head, so that I use still now. And that's all about symphonic music, because I used to play symphonic music all the time with that instrument.
That is amazing.
So I still believe that electron, that instrument, is a perfect educational, tool to get the sense of tone, color, and mixture of timbres. Every time I write music, my brain sound is always symphonic music, always. So now writing for, symphonic music, that's perfect. Writing for M unit, that's kind of a reduced version of symphonic music plus a rhythm section. So that's okay. Writing for big band, that's challenging because I have to always convert that string sound to saxophones and brass all the time. Solo instruments, that's fine. That's probably much less people, so that I can, have a different perspective on it. Mm-hmm. My problem nowadays to play piano by myself is that, okay, I already have so much sound in my head, and I try to, go through those sounds through my body and my 10 fingers, and that's not enough all the time. And then the speed that I can get from my brain to fingers is not fast enough anymore, because I don't practice every day. I don't practice piano every day. I do, write every day, but I do not practice piano anymore. So I could technically play piano, but that timbre is not what I want. And the colors that I have, that I imagine me playing piano, is very different from what I'm hearing here and what I'm hearing from here, which frustrates me. So I personally believe that a pianist has such a privilege to have 88 keys and then so much color to express by himself or herself. It's so wide range of colors and range. And then now my brain wants to do that at once as a pianist. And then my technique or my physical reaction is not, following that well. So every time I play piano, now that started getting me frustrated. So that's kind of one reason that I don't really play piano right now, except the times that I really want to hear my sound, or I expected me to play on a piano on a certain composition. Yeah.
So
my brain
cool.
works. Yeah.
I can't believe that I never knew that. So piano wasn't your first instrument; it was the electric organ.
Right. Well, piano was obviously the first one to touch, but that was not a main thing for a long time.
I see.
Electric organ was the main thing for a long time.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
So now, fast forward several years, what is your writing process now that when you sit down at the piano, maybe to sketch out a piece? Do you feel limited by that instrument as a tool for your writing, or are you able to use it effectively how you want to, or do you miss having the electric organ? More simply, what is your process for writing now? What is your biggest tool?
Right. Well, nowadays it's been a long time since I quit playing electric organ.
Mm-hmm.
So since then, piano is the only instrument that I can play. And that helps a lot for me when I compose because I can hear overtones. And I really need to hear overtones when I compose. And then now, considering that my acoustic piano is, for me, an orchestra that you could play by yourself. Like a single person could play. That's orchestra or something like that. So I always need an acoustic piano when I compose and when I sketch. And that's when I keep writing down some ideas. And if I like it, and then I'm going to just record it with my phone. Otherwise, with the synthesizer or like MIDI keyboard or something, I cannot compose.
So because you're on the road so much as a conductor now, how do you still allow yourself to write when you're traveling? Is it more challenging, but you're able to do it? Is it something that you just say, you know what, I need to wait to hear those overtones when I get back to my piano?
Right.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah. So that's been a challenge to find either space with the acoustic piano or to find a great schedule for myself. I usually go with the second plan. I prefer to just sit down, to calm down, to be settled down in a certain place, preferably my place here or my parents' place. My parents still have a piano that I used to use back in Tokyo. So either Tokyo or New York City to have acoustic piano. And whenever I'm on the road, that I try to do writing jobs, but arranging and orchestration jobs. Those jobs that I don't need acoustic piano because I can just imagine in my head really easily. For compositions that I really need acoustic piano. So if I have to compose on the road, I try to call the clients after the rehearsal if they have a space with an acoustic piano. And if they do, then I just get there for 2 hours or something to get ideas and then record as much as possible and then try to read or to digest these ideas back in a hotel or something like that.
Awesome. So one thing that you just said right now that you brought up is the difference between composing and arranging and orchestrating. And I'm sure that people that are watching this podcast or listening to this podcast right now have heard, or if they haven't heard it yet, they really should, your arrangement of Lady Gaga's Paparazzi on your debut album, Journey to Journey.
Right.
So that arrangement is such a departure from the original song that when you think of Lady Gaga's version of Paparazzi, listeners, take my word for it, like this version is very different. Right? So what is your approach to arranging and orchestrating versus composition? Do you find that there's like tools that you can use from composition in arranging and orchestrating, or vice versa? Do let's just open up that can of worms, right? So like do you approach composition sometimes from an orchestrational perspective? Obviously arrangement being that it's a formal, changing the form of a piece or like changing things about the structure of the musical, let's say the DNA, right? Right. That's what to me arranging is. So how much of composition your compositional individuality goes into your arrangements and your orchestration, and how much of your arranging and orchestrational individuality goes into your composition? Right.
That really depends on client. So for that Lady Gaga arrangement,
that is the best answer.
Really?
Right? I mean, I think that's the thing that's sometimes so overlooked in our field, is that oftentimes, unless you're writing for your group, for M Unit, right?
Yeah.
You're not writing for yourself, and people can say to you, you know what, like that's such a cool arrangement, that's such a cool orchestration, and you're saying, yeah, thanks. This is, it's just what the client wanted. It's
Yeah,
Well, it's what the
exactly.
doctor
So for
ordered.
that Lady Gaga arrangement, the client was myself. So
Aha.
I don't really say that as an arrangement, like a, arrangement job. That was more, kind of a collaboration between composition and arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say if I were to write for the Danish radio big band and a singer or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know the big band's personal, and so that I know I have to switch my instrumentation brain from M unit brain to DR big band brain. Now, if there were to be a singer, that's also another story, that she or he has original story, original lyrics, original piece, and they might have a specific idea for the arrangement, they might have a specific key, atmosphere, request for arrangement. So that's going to be a big part of my imagination for this kind of arrangement. So I really have to think about them a lot, my clients a lot. But at the same time, they asked me to write something. So now my problem is, okay, I'd love to, take care of my client, but my next question is, how much of myself could I get in that piece? Is it going to be just slightly like 3% that nobody would probably notice? Or would that be even 60% that might be probably Miho? Or is that be like 90% like a Lady Gaga arrangement? That's my next question that I always ask myself. But it's never been like 90% for my arranging jobs, except my my arrangements for my albums. That's because that clients is myself.
Right. Yeah, and you
Yeah.
brought up another really interesting point, is that when you're writing for different ensembles, not only are you writing, for that client, like the big overarching like client, right, but you're writing for the individual members of the band. You know exactly who's in the band, what they sound like, and what to give them, what parts to write for them, so that your
Exactly.
music can be actualized in the most effective and effective way possible.
That's a huge part of my inspiration. That's as much as, well, the more that I can get those informations, the more that helps for me to get inspiration and ideas. And that's what I really like about writing for my band, because I know them musically but also personally as well, so that I can get to think about their character or personality in the music as well, to reflect. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that is awesome. Do you? I mean, I'm sure that by the time your tenure with the Danish radio band has you're just that band is gonna start to feel like your band as well in a certain.
I've been
way.
enjoying writing for them.
Yeah.
And that actually, one thing inspired me, that they have been playing a lot of music with electric bass. That I had never ever written any music for big band with electric bass. Now, last year, I wrote something for them for the first time with electric bass. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, they definitely inspires me. I mean, they definitely inspire me.
Right. So that's
Yeah.
just another thing. So the composition can inspire you, the arrangement can inspire, the orchestration, and now the band members, the personnel, can also inspire you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what would your advice be to young composers, even experienced composers, who want to, like, A, start writing, or B, just change up how they're writing, their approach, or just get a new sound going? What is one piece of advice that you could offer?
This is not for specifically for writer or arranger or composer, but also as a general perspective for me as a career, and knowing yourself is the most important thing to me. Producing yourself, knowing yourself so that you can produce yourself, knowing what you want to do, knowing what your strength would be, knowing what you are believing in, then you can plan something ahead. That was my, goal basically for those 2 years at MSM, where I was so behind from everyone else, not only in terms of English, but also as a student who didn't have a jazz degree before. I was the only student who didn't have a jazz degree coming to master's degree of MSM. So I had such less knowledge about jazz music, jazz history, jazz standards, everything. But I just found myself that I could go with my composing brain with symphonic sound. So here I am, that I'm working with, kind of symphonic jazz orchestra, chamber orchestra, my band is also chamber jazz orchestra, these kind of things. So it helped a lot for me to know what I want to do, what I believe in, or what I produce for myself. Since, especially in these quarantine time, that you do have a lot of time to actually ask yourself, and then to stop yourself and stand, pause to think back or think actually future, what you want to do in the future or something like that too, that I would probably recommend everyone to know you more.
To know yourself more, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, very beautiful. So you brought up another point, which is that we are stuck in quarantine right now. So what are you doing to stay motivated, to stay productive, to stay relaxed?
Well, fortunately, my main job is to write music. So I still do have a lot of writing jobs coming from budget from last year, I think. Although all of the performance gigs are canceled, and all of music festival in the summer, these are also getting canceled, and then that's very sad that I'm losing all of the exciting events through the summer. But in terms of working, I do still have a lot of things to work on, and I had been very bad at making deadlines. So now this is a great time for me to keep up with the deadlines, to get back myself on the track that I can be on time.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, this occupation is going to be the one that is going to get more impact much later. Now all the players and the productions are shut down, that they can't make money or budget for next season or something like that. So I'm afraid that my jobs as a writer are going to get affected like next season or next year or something like that. But for now, I try to not think about that too much, and to do the normal life as much as possible, because being stuck in my apartment was also a part of my job since before the corona time.
Yeah.
And then now, since everyone's struggling with that, and then I once got a little bit influenced by that kind of downside, being dark, and the struggle to get my self-motivation. But now, slowly, but I don't really slowly I try to get my self-discipline back, but also at the same time I try to not be hard on myself too much. So it goes up and down, but that's my quarantine life, I guess.
That's my #quarantine life.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that sounds like a really great mix of, being a dedicated professional and being a, dedicated human. So.
Well, I do admire and respect that everyone's trying to survive as a musician, and then try to invent something different. From live performance to something online, and internet kind of
Right.
events.
It's a whole new world.
Which is very inspiring. Yeah.
Do you think that that's going to persist? Do you think after the quarantine is over, do you think that the internet is going to, the way that we're working literally now is going to change the way that we work in the future?
I have no idea. Well, I've been quite far away from those industry, to be honest. I've known about the name YouTuber, but I don't really watch those videos, so I had no idea what that means. But I'm just so it is just inspiring for me to see what people are doing right now to make something still happen. But at the same time, I actually was in Denmark exactly like when this pandemic was starting. And on the day of the concert, that we were supposed to have a concert with 1,200 people, in the morning of the concert day, the Danish government announced a concert without audiences. And so we had to do a concert and a TV show without any people in the concert hall. And then that felt so strange and so sad. So that was a great opportunity for me to realize, okay, how much it means to us to play for people, play for audiences. And then they support us and then they enjoy the music. And then I believe that that's such a precious thing now. So I'm looking forward to going back to myself, going back, bringing back to live performances, but also I really hope that both of musicians or like artists and also audiences are going to appreciate how special it is to make this art in the same space together. It's not a one side going to audiences. Like audiences are here. That's why artists can make something for audiences. And then that's just such a beautiful interaction to me now.
Right, that human element will never be replaced by any screen or technology or
Exactly.
or nonsense like that. Right.
Yeah, I agree.